The aim of this presentation is reinforcement on what we did last Thursday evening after the away day, and it builds upon the work that was undertaken in June with our two-day workshop. And what we're going to look at, or what I want to look at now, is what next stage is, because during the summer I'd like for everybody to develop blocks of learning, or learning blocks, around their subject areas that fit into the actual principles of the course review. This first presentation is a sort of like theory behind the learning blocks and how it all fits together. And then the next presentation, or the second video of the series, if you like, will be my adaptation of the learning block, where it explains what it looked like, and this is the thing that I'd like people to develop. So this one is here. Initial thoughts, when we sat down with everyone, we thought that on the table I was working with, that in fact you saw the idea of learning outcomes and cognitive development was quite small at levels 4, but progressed through to level 6, and subject content was quite big at level 4 and reduced as you actually go up to level 6. I don't think now that this is a good model. I think this is a better model about this, where we have 3 pillars here, and the 3 pillars are cognitive development, assessment, and subject content. If you look at subject content now and cognitive development, you can see that in fact they actually sit and they're exactly the same size here. So cognitive development works all the way through, and before someone says, I know it says 5 there, I made a mistake. Alright, so basically we have 2 pillars: cognitive development, the development of the intellect, and subject development, that's knowledge-based development. What I've also shown here is how we as HE differ from a work-based environment. And what I've taken as an example here is a national vocational qualification, which is an NVQ. Now that's purely work-based. They're done in the workplace themselves. They are only work-based competencies, and they are competent at delivering this particular areas of expertise. Right? We don't do that because we don't have full access to actual working in or students working on real life projects and making the real decisions. Yeah? If you built an aircraft carrier, you could probably get an NVQ for developing an aircraft carrier. So over here, our development's in the cognitive field, right? Because this subject knowledge, even though it's fairly constant, it's also transient. Yeah. Whereas here, the cognitive development is in fact the development of the graduate with the graduate attributes. So we're now looking at intellectual development that sits on this side. And one of the key drivers to this, because we're looking at inquiry-based learning, as Tony's put forward, and we're looking at things like projects, etc., is scenario-based models that derive, right, the intellectual development. Yeah? So the assessment isn't actually assessing whether you know something. It's about the assessment is assessing how much the person has developed intellectually with knowledge content. So in fact what happens here, subject content is a catalyst around which to base the assessment. Yeah. So this model can fit for any type of subject, but here we use the construction areas, and we see it and we develop the intellect over here. So our development is on this side of the learning model, as opposed to this side, which is purely work-based and VQ. Now what we've got is we have this infinity model. Yeah, and again, I know this is not the infinity model, but it's one I found off the web. Okay, but it is an infinity model, and this area here is pre-construction, the construction or project delivery phase, and then post-construction or asset performance or management. And it goes from cradle to grave, or normally cradle to cradle. Now, when we discuss this, there are 3 main themes that run throughout the whole process: management of the process, technology, and design. Now, initially, again, I thought management was inside the model. I think it could sit inside the model, but it drives the process. What I've shown here is it's external. It's the external environment that impacts on the model here. And you can look at lots of examples of how this does. I mean, one that we've used quite a lot lately is this idea of the government construction strategy in the way in which we actually now deliver projects. You could say BIM is like that, definitely procurement and project management. So all these things are about the delivery of what goes on inside the physical environment which sits in here. And that actually drives the physical environment when you come down to things like sustainability, heat loss, etc., renewable energy, zero carbon. They're all driven externally but impact internally, so I've left them outside. Obviously with the physical environment or technology, right, that's technology driven, those are areas that are purely to do with the physical development of the building. Science, structures, construction technology, they all sit on that side of the model. And then of course here for us with design, the graphical representation of the work, we have here architectural technology and how that fits into the model as well. So you can see that when we build learning blocks, our learning blocks relate directly to the Infinity model and also relate directly to three themes of management, technology and design. Now I've put down a list of things under management. This is not the definitive list, and other people may want to put other things under management. These are all up for debate and discussion on the 10th of September. So if anyone else wants to put something else on that list, or this list here under management, they can do. Right? This is not this is the finished article, it isn't. It's just an example of the things that could go in there, based on A, my own experience, but also B, on the work we did in June, developing all those themes and the key issues that came up in those areas. So, and then the technology, the physical built environment, and the last one, as I say, architectural technology, the graphic environment. So you have those. If we come to the next one then, a learning block will be in one of three themes. A learning block will be design, technology or management. So you have to make a decision which theme your learning block is running into. And when we develop a learning block, and this model is based upon the model that I presented on Thursday evening after the away day, and we have there are a number of themes, but the themes go like this: the learning outcomes. So here you have prior cognitive development. Yeah? So what is the prior cognitive development that's expected at that particular level? Yeah, levels 4, levels 5 and level 6. And then there's the cognitive development at a level in which you're working in. And then there's the graduate attributes. So the learning outcomes fulfills this criteria. And then you have the assessment. This is specific to the level at which you're working on, relates directly to the learning outcomes, assessment strategy and philosophy, and it will also be summative, formative and synoptic. And when it comes to the subject content, again, this one, subject content and learning outcomes, provide traceability. There's an expectation that this will be done, prior cognitive development will be done in the previous modules, levels of modules in the actual program. Same with prior knowledge, right? To actually undertake this particular subject, there is a requirement of prior knowledge. Sometimes there may not be any prior knowledge requirement, but what it does do is it quite nicely signposts right the way through the actual development of the modules and the subject area that there are things that have been covered of which you can relate to when you start modules, plus also point to when you've finished a module. So signpost to previous learning blocks. It follows on from here. There will be acquisition of knowledge that's required. Then there will be a content that's inside the learning block, and then signposted to previous ones, and it's also signposted to the Infinity model. Now that is the completion of a learning block. The second presentation is looking at a learning block and see how it goes together, which relates back to this first presentation.